The Pandora excavation. The mountains were never silent. They breathed with the wind, groaned with avalanches, and whispered through the forests that clung to their sides. But on that morning the mountains roared. Explosives thundered, drills screamed, and men shouted to each other through clouds of dust as the great tunnel pushed deeper into the stone. Kovacs, the foreman, was a man carved from the same granite they blasted every day. He knew the voice of rock, and he knew when it lied. When the last charge went off and the wall fell with an echo too hollow for solid stone, his stomach turned. Something was behind it. When the dust cleared, the workers fell silent. The blast had opened not another section of mountain, but a doorway arched, deliberate, lined with stone blocks so ancient they seemed fused into the mountain itself. Inside lay a chamber that reeked of age. Torchlight revealed walls etched with marking spirals, jagged lines, crude symbols cut into the stone. The air was cold, colder than the mountain outside, as if something inside the room had never known the touch of the sun. At the center stood a massive chest bound in blackened metal bands. Its surface shimmered strangely, as if oil moved beneath its skin. But it was not the chest that made one worker vomit into the dust. It was the body. Chained before the chest lay a figure, or what remained of one. Its skin was parchment, stretched tight over bone. Its eyes had long rotted away, yet its jaw was frozen in a scream that echoed in the silence. Shackles pinned its wrists and ankles to the stone floor. Whoever it had been, they had died guarding or perhaps being punished by the chest. The symbols on the walls drew the attention of those who could read. Within days, archaeologists and linguists had swarmed the site. Among them was Dr. Helena Grant, whose steady hands traced the inscriptions with reverence. "This is older than Greek," she whispered, breath fogging in the chill. "But there are fragments here I recognize. It speaks of a vessel, a container for suffering, a prison for every evil. In later retellings it was called Pandora's box." The men laughed uneasily, but none dared step closer to the chest. Birds stopped singing near the excavation. Equipment malfunctioned. One night a worker claimed to hear whispering from the chamber, though no one was inside. Another swore he saw the mummy's fingers twitch. The order came swiftly from above. Extract the chest. It took cranes and winches to pull the artifact from its tomb. Metal shrieked, cables snapped, but eventually the chest rose into daylight for the first time in thousands of years. As it cleared the chamber's threshold, the chained corpse crumbled into dust. Helena felt her throat close. It was as if something had been released simply by moving the chest. But she said nothing. The artifact was transferred to a research facility hidden in the valley. Sterile lights replaced torches. Scientists replaced miners. They measured, scanned, and prodded. Instruments malfunctioned. Readings spiked and dipped without logic. The inscriptions had been clear: "Do not open." Yet curiosity was stronger than fear, and orders were stronger still. Helena pleaded. These were not warnings for the illiterate. They were carved by people who saw what this thing does. They chained a man to die in front of it. Doesn't that tell you enough? But the director only said, "We didn't fund this project to leave mysteries sealed." The day of the opening was gray, the air thick with storm. Scientists crowded the observation room, while engineers worked on the bindings. The chest resisted every modern tool, as though it resented being touched. Sparks hissed, plasma cutters screamed, and finally one iron band split with a sound like a groan. The lights flickered, monitors buzzed, a hum filled the air, deep and resonant, like the earth itself moaning. The lid was pried open. For a heartbeat, there was only silence. Then came the change. A technician began laughing hysterically until his voice cracked into screams. Another worker clawed at her skin, shrieking that spiders were burrowing beneath it. A scientist dropped to his knees, sobbing as if mourning the end of the world. It spread like fire. Rage, despair, paranoia, emotions twisted into physical afflictions. People turned on each other, fists flying, teeth bared. Blood stained the sterile floors. Helena stumbled back, clutching her cross so tightly it cut her palm. They weren't myths, she gasped. They were chains. The chest was not a container of objects. It was a vessel of concepts, disease, hatred, grief, madness. And now they were free. Outside the facility, the world began to echo the chamber's curse. Riots erupted without reason. People murdered loved ones in blind fury. Plagues of unknown origin spread through villages. Animals turned savage. Reports came of shadows moving against the light, of whispers driving men insane. Near the mountain, reality itself began to bend. Workers saw visions of their dead relatives beckoning from the forest. Time fractured. A man swore he saw himself, older, whispering warnings before vanishing. Birds circled endlessly, never landing, as if trapped in invisible cages. Helena gathered survivors, Kovacs, a soldier named Eric, a trembling priest called Father Matthew, and two young researchers too terrified to leave her side. She believed there was only one way to stop the spreading corruption: return the evils to the chest. The legends say one thing remained inside when Pandora opened it. She told them as screams echoed down the hall. Hope. To seal the evils again, we must give it back what it lacks. They stared at her, hollow-eyed. Father Matthew whispered, "To surrender hope is to surrender the soul." The journey back to the chest was a descent into nightmare. The halls twisted. Lights flickered to reveal blood-slicked floors. Doors led to corridors that hadn't been there moments before. The group moved through visions as much as walls. A child crying in an empty room. An old man weeping blood. Shadows pressing against the glass of observation windows. They fought things that should not exist, colleagues with eyes black as tar, creatures with too many limbs, voices that imitated their own. At last, they reached the chamber where the chest pulsed like a black heart. The lid gaped, darkness spilling forth in waves that chilled their bones. Shapes swirled within forms made of despair, rage, pestilence. They pressed against reality, hungry for more. Helena stepped forward, trembling. "It has to be me." "No," Kovacs growled, his scarred hands shaking. "You warned us. You don't deserve this." Eric raised his rifle. "We close it with fire." "It won't work." Helena snapped. "You can't burn despair. You can't shoot madness. The only counter to these is what they lack." The legends were clear. She placed her hand on the edge of the chest. The darkness surged, clawing at her, filling her veins with hatred. With grief so vast, she wanted to throw herself inside. She felt every scream of every soul that had ever suffered. Her knees buckled, but she whispered through tears and blood, "Hope." The chest screamed, not with sound, but with a shattering of reality itself. The bands glowed white-hot, reforging, binding themselves tighter. The darkness shrieked, clawing, tearing, but Helena poured herself into it, her dreams, her future, her last spark of belief. The lid slammed shut. The chamber convulsed. The walls wept dust. Then silence. Kovacs opened his eyes to find himself once more in the mountain tunnel. Workers shouted, machines roared. The wall where the chamber had been was solid stone. No one remembered the chest. No one remembered the horror, except him. He staggered into the sunlight, trembling. Birds sang. The air was warm again. The world looked unchanged. But in his pocket was a scrap of ancient parchment. On it, in faded ink, a single word: